Hello there guys, what is going on? SonOfChelsea back here again. Rational perspective on Chelsea 2, Lille 0. Really convincing display. One of the most entertaining Chelsea games I've witnessed in quite a while. I think maybe you go back to the Spurs performance last month, or the biggest compliment I can pay to this game and performance is it would very easily suit, say, October, November time this season when things were going really well for Thomas Tuchel. That's the highest compliment I can pay because it was so controlled but also effective. The team looked fluid, which is a word that's used a lot, and efficient, I think, with what we did in the game. Chelsea were a lot braver in possession. I liked how quickly we moved the ball. I liked how energetic we were. It seemed like not only I think Lille's approach to the game helped Chelsea because they didn't come to the bridge and just sit back and hope for something to happen on the counter. I think they tried to attack Chelsea, which obviously gave us space to break into. But at the same time, I think that the play from central midfield, Kovacic and KANTE, and then when Ruben came on, it didn't change that much in terms of getting the ball forward quickly. Tuchel's big decision to drop Romelu Lukaku obviously paid off with Kai Havertz's best performance of the season. I think it was. I've criticised Kai a lot recently, but that was the type of performance I want to see from Kai on a consistent basis. And the attack looking a lot better, the midfield looking great, the defence obviously continuing to look solid going into a cup final on Sunday against Liverpool. It's massive. Where to start? Obviously, I think Lukaku, him being dropped is so big and will be talked about beyond the game itself. What's now going to happen on Sunday? Because Kai Havertz is not only now off the back of a really good performance where he's influenced things in a massive way for Tuchel, but we know his record in finals. He just recently scored another big goal in a final for Chelsea. Given the style of game, I found Tuchel's post-match comments when he was asked about Rom, the decision to start Kai, quite interesting because he spoke about sort of a high energy game. He wanted pressing from the front. And you kind of think about what Chelsea did with Havertz at the start of this year against Liverpool and the type of game you kind of need against Liverpool. And I'm not quite sure if by that logic is Lukaku going to come straight back in. I'm not entirely sure, and I think a lot of people will look at Kai's performance last night, just the way how engaging, that was a word I used to criticise, the lack of engagement on Saturday compared to last night. Kai will, seems the right person to start the game on Saturday, given what we've seen from Lukaku recently. Even though he did score, obviously, 2 goals in the Club World Cup, those 7 touches and kind of took all, kind of giving the impression he wanted to protect Lukaku a little bit. So we have to see on that front, but Kai was brilliant. Going back on Wyscout and looking at some of his movements and some of the stuff maybe I missed, really good centre-forward performance, that's what it was. And it's the type of performance we haven't seen enough from Kai this season, even when he's played as a centre-forward, because I know a lot of people will turn around and go, he's played off the left, he played off the right. He hasn't always been the main man, true, especially in recent weeks whilst Lukaku's been in the team. But there are even performances in October, November, December time when Lukaku wasn't in the team, recovering from his injury, that weren't that convincing from Kai as a 9. So it's not like you just put him in that role and he's perfect. Sure, I think the players around him absolutely help. When you've got Pulisic on form, when Ziyech is in the best form of his Chelsea career, obviously that's going to help. And I think when you have players first time passes into the feet of attackers, it's always going to make the game a lot more fluid and encouraging than the slow side-to-side possession where Havertz is making runs and is being found rather than making runs and not being found, which is the problem that Lukaku's had and speaks to the awkward relationship that Lukaku has with this team compared to Kai. That performance last night very much felt like not only earlier in the season, but you could take it back to last season, the back end of last season in the Champions League knockout stage, the games against Atletico Madrid, the games against Real Madrid, where Kai was really coming into his own as a number 9 and kind of giving you the preview of what life would have been like at Chelsea if we hadn't have signed Lukaku last summer, because I very much felt like Kai was just going to be the 9 and we were going to continue with that. But what I like as well was you didn't need to go on Wyscout. You didn't need to have debates about what Kai was doing last night. It was so abundantly obvious the impact he was having, the runs he was making, the movement he was making, his overall involvement, almost typical number 9 play, making himself available, creating chances for himself. There are a few times, particularly in the second half, I know he blasted it over, but there was a moment in the second half where he latched onto a loose pass, drove forward, was outnumbered, and still managed to wriggle his sort of body in a position where he could get a shot away, and it went over the bar. But I know I always reference him, but Diego would do that pretty regularly. good number 9s do that, and that's kind of what Kai's becoming for Chelsea. It looks more and more obvious that his best and most effective position is as a central striker. I just liked, if he does get a run as 9 in the team again in the Premier League, he needs to repeat this, because it seems that all of his greatest performances come outside the Premier League. We want to see that form consistently, but highly encouraging night, obviously, for Kai Havertz and the other attackers around him as well. Pulisic, really good finish to round off a brilliant move. N'Golo Kante just went Kante Sonic, didn't he? That performance, that second goal in particular, the build up to it was almost identical to the Atletico Madrid second where Emerson scored. This time it's Pulisic putting it away. Kante, we've kind of been saving him, protecting him all the season, I think, for the knockout stages of the Champions League, and he kind of hasn't produced a performance like that this season so far, and there's kind of been concerns that, has he still got it in him? Was that last season, was that it for Kante at sort of this level? But last night he reached those levels again. I think it's now 4 or 5 man of the match performances in the Champions League where he's been given a man of the match award in knockout games. I think our last 4 or 5. It just shows you the talent we have, right? And if he's at that type of level, Chelsea have a great chance of winning the Champions League again, because he is game changing. You see the runs he makes from central midfield. I think once again, a bit like we've seen in the past with Kovacic and Kante, it isn't always perfect, but what I like about having those two as a double six, or whatever the formation Tuchel uses, I think both of those players are more inclined to hit the ball faster, sort of, and hit, pass quickly, get it forward, make runs forward from deep. I think you need that in this team a bit more, kind of those bombing number 8s, and that's what Kante was. I mean, I know Chelsea, you've tweeted this out. His first touch, Kante, was kind of setting up a lot of Chelsea attacks, counter-attacks, and you saw that for the second goal. Thiago Silva, I think it's unfair he didn't win a man of the match, because I thought he had a masterful performance. Please go and read a thread from my mate Adam Newsom. He put sort of the moments from Thiago last night, just where he's directing play and kind of orchestrating where his fellow defenders should be to mop up sort of space. And it's just... He is, masterful is the one word to use. The elegance, the leadership, the maturity. You just go on and on with Thiago, the level he's performing at. I felt sorry for him in the first half because he was kind of having to do 2 jobs because Alonso was all over the place. And both Tuchel and Thiago were having a go at Alonso, and rightly so. But even that, there's no chaos to him. He just, obviously, he sweeps it up without much fuss. And Chelsea's defence in the Champions League continues to be immaculate. Mendy... Jonathan David, I know there was a lot of talk about him before this game. Young Canadian striker doing well, linked to a number of top European clubs. You expect with Lille's kind of business model and their kind of struggles recently that he'll be on the move. You would have not been blamed for forgetting he was on the pitch. You would have had to check that he was on the pitch, because Chelsea's defence completely shut him out. And really, Mendy had very little to do on the night. I think Lille can feel a little bit hard done by. They showed enough threat that the second leg isn't just a dead rubber, of course, at 2-0. But, how many times was Mendy forced into a world-class save? How many times... The only time I felt really concerned that Lille were going to score was actually a cross in the first half that Rudiger sort of deflected over the bar, and you felt that could have gone anywhere. But other than that, defence was immaculate, and Thiago is just incredible, isn't he? It's just an absolute joy to watch him play for Chelsea, and I feel kind of lazy giving him that analysis, but it just is. He's just a legend of the game, and he's just performing at such an elite level at the moment. The 2 concerns obviously is Mateo Kovacic and Hakim Ziyech. We haven't quite heard the full extent of both of their injury worries at the moment. I know Tuchel said to media after that, he was he regrets not taking cover off at half time. Is that an injury that he's picked up before today? Is, whatever it was quite clearly something bugging him. He didn't look that good walking down the tunnel. And it's the problem, especially when we look at, say, building chemistry, building those connections in this team, that Tuchel has found such a struggle this season. This is part of the problem, is he'll get these encouraging performances, and it's not only the fact that individuals maybe underperform where he changes things up. When you've got players injured, that forces you into rotation. I guess the good thing is, if it's not good, Ziyech is in the best form of his Chelsea career, and it'd be so devastating for him to have another setback. It's a repeating pattern, unfortunately, for Ziyech. He gets into a good run of form and something halts that. So fingers crossed. But you've got Mason coming back into the team, who obviously is a very influential player. So it's not like, I think you're bringing in someone that can't get up to speed and influence things himself. But personally, for Ziyech, it's so devastating. So fingers crossed it's not the worst. And Kova too is having the best season of his Chelsea career, and I think he showed really good moments. And I just, covering Kante, I think they had good performances in the Champions League knockout stage last year. So yeah, fingers crossed. But Ruben, I think, is someone who hasn't played, who hasn't started a game for like 74 days. Came off the bench. He looked rusty against at Selhurst Park, but he came off the bench last night, and I think he looked really good, versatile as well. Questions over, can he have this revival? I'm not quite sure at the moment. I think it's going to be very difficult for him, but he showed encouraging signs once again, because we've kind of forgotten about him over the last few months when he really had that nice period of form and minutes under Tuchel in sort of the autumn. So we'll have to see on that front, but good. And we move on to Sunday's massive cup final, where hopefully Chelsea can lift another piece of silverware. I think obviously Lukaku or Havertz, or just that decision is obviously going to be massive for Tuchel. I'm leaning in the direction that I think he sticks with the same attack, or very close to the same attack. I think you start Pulisic again off the back of a goal. He's a goal scorer. I'd like to see him stay in the team. He scored obviously against Liverpool last time, didn't he, in the Premier League? Keep Kai Havertz in the team, and if Ziyech is not good to go, then you bring Mason Mount back in, because obviously he's tried to recover as quickly as possible for the League Cup final, and obviously you want Mason in a major game for Chelsea. So there we have it. Let me know your thoughts on the game in the comments below, and I will see you again very soon. Have a great day.